What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel.
Robcore, man. Let me tell you something, man. Robcore, man. Dude, Injustice. Dude, I love Injustice so much because we're dealing with gods now, right? Okay. So in the last video, we picked up with like the whole fight between the gods of Olympus, all right, the Wonder Woman gods going against like Superman and his crew. And like we ended, like, I left you guys on a cliffhanger. We ended the video with like Billy Batson transforming into Shazam and racing off to fight alongside Superman. So it would be like two Supermen in the same landscape. Right? Well, with Shazam showing up here, dude, he just starts to bring the pain. And this is what's so cool about this, is because it's like you have these gods of Olympus, these almost insurmountable beings like Hercules, literally choking out Wonder Woman to the point that he's probably gonna kill her. Now, of course, Shazam showing up saves the life of Wonder Woman. And it's also because the two of them start going against each other, right? And like Hercules being a demigod, being, you know, an immortal being, an incorporeal being, housing a mortal form, basically makes him invulnerable, except for only the strongest of beings, Superman, Shazam. And it's so cool because when Shazam's facing off against Hercules is like, I've got the power of a god. And Shazam's like, well, I got the power of 6 gods. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Not only that, again, we still have Batman and his crew doing the best they can. But the funny thing about this is the more you go through it, the more you're just like, Batman and his guys have no fight here. There's nothing they can offer here. Like, they're just average folks. They're just regular people fighting against gods on both sides. But the other half is that they also have the opportunity to basically just kind of like stay out of the way, right? I mean, you got Superman floating in space, you know, where he was just kind of sent flying, and you've just got, you know, you got the forces of Olympus fighting against the forces of Superman. Sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And sometimes the best thing to do when a drunk man's fighting is to just stay out of his way. Just let him take himself out. And that's exactly the game that's being played here. Like, Shazam takes out Hercules, right? I mean, with all his strength, all his vaunted skill, he takes out Hercules, knocks him out. Superman comes back and kills him. I mean, just bam. I mean, just kills Hercules. And it's just like, wow. I mean, dude, when I saw that, I was just like, holy cow. Like, I didn't realize Superman was on that kind of a level of strength, but it's insane to see it happen because when that happens, Zeus responds in kind. But the other half of this is we have Batman and we have Damian Wayne fighting each other. Now, the thing I love about this is that Damian Wayne's a skilled fighter, right? Like, we look at Damian Wayne and it's like, yeah, man, Damian, dude. Like he's been trained by so many different people. He's been trained in fighting. He's fought alongside Batman. The kid knows how to fight, right? Well, the great thing about this is that Batman tries to reason with Damian. It's almost like this last stand between them. That was the whole thing. It was Alfred always telling Batman, look, you walked away from Damian after the death of Dick Grayson. You have to reconcile with your son. You have to reconcile with Damian. You have to bring him back. And that's what Batman does. Like, he's talking to Damian. He's like, look, Dick Grayson's death was not your fault. It was an accident. I blamed you. I shouldn't have. It was an accident. It was never your fault. Please come back to me. Damian Wayne's like, no, like, I'm not a Robin. I'm never coming back. And that's the beauty of this, because Batman says, well, fine, if that's how it's going to be, then that's what it is. And that's the coolest thing about this, is because Damian Wayne has been fighting against Batman this whole time and holding his own, right? No, it was all an illusion. One kick, one knee to the gut, and Damian's down. And that's the greatest thing about this, because this is Batman telling Damian where he stands. I mean, it's Batman saying, look, like, I want you to be aware, my son, like, if we were fighting and you were led to believe that you were my equal, well, that's my fault. So let me clear this up right now. Let me remind you of your place in the bigger picture. You're a good fighter. You're a great Robin, but you're no Batman. And it's just like, damn, son, like, it's amazing to see that go down. That's why these things keep getting better and better, because, you know, with Shazam turning his attention to all these forces of Zeus and literally starting to take all them apart, well, then suddenly he's transferred back into his normal form. He's just sent back to Billy Batson. And this is when we find out that with the arrival of Zeus, he's basically stripped Billy Batson of his powers. Billy Batson cannot become Shazam. And that's the crazy thing about this, is because then we have Harley Quinn come to his aid, right? Like, of all the people that could come to the aid of Billy Batson, who's being attacked by Zeus, Harley Quinn is the one that steps up. Now, of course, Zeus takes her out. I mean, just, you know, electrocutes her and kills Harley Quinn, and that's the end of that. But then we have Wonder Woman saying, hey, look, you have to stop this. I recognize you're my pops. You got to stop this. There's got to be another way. Zeus immediately responds and says, quiet, take your side. I mean, this is Zeus at his just most prime. This is, I am not in the mood for games. I am in the mood for you to do what you're told. Like, dude, it's insane. And like, Wonder Woman recognizes it. She's like, okay. And like, she just takes the side of Zeus's forces. Now, this is not Zeus forcing Wonder Woman into subservience. This is Zeus at his most powerful. And even Wonder Woman is smart enough to know not to mess with him. Superman recognizes that. Superman's just like, okay, fine. We need to find a different route. If we try to take Zeus head on, we are all going to die. So he's like, we have to find a different world to do this. Now, in the end, Superman basically just kind of, basically says, everybody disperse. Everybody, you go your own separate ways. That's the end of that. Hermes, the messenger of Zeus, goes to the world and says, the kings or the gods of Olympus have returned. Because remember, that was the whole thing. Aries went to Zeus and said, hey, look, like, you're relics in the eyes of humanity. You need to retake your rightful place as the gods of Earth. The old gods need to come back. And so it's basically the messenger of Zeus going around and essentially broadcasting to the world and saying, the time of the old gods has returned. The gods of Olympus have come back. You will renounce all religions on Earth. Everybody will swear fealty to Zeus. And it's so cool to see, because it's like, it introduces a new element to the injustice landscape to this point. That's why I said to you in the last video, that was one of the coolest things. Years 1 and 2 were the superheroes fighting. Year 3 was magic. Year 4 are gods. And it's so cool to see this unfold. And so what we end up doing here is we pick up with Harley Quinn and Billy Batson and Queen Hippolyta. And they're basically all being sent to hell, right? I mean, they're being sent to the underworld of the Greek gods, but they're all being sent to hell. And it's really, really cool, because Harley Quinn is just like popping out all these names of like Greek mythological beings, because she's like, I know my history. Like, I'm not so dumb as people think that I am. Like, I know my history. I know stuff, and it's and it's cool to see, because this is why I like Harley Quinn's character so much, because it's always these little tidbits, these little goodies that you get, in between all the major conflicts. And she just injects this fresh little bit of fun into the story that wouldn't normally be there. And it's just like, Harley Quinn, yes, you're amazing. Like, I love you in this story. And it's so cool to see. But then we switch over back to Themyscira. Remember, Themyscira is where all the Amazons are residing. It's where they kind of swear allegiance to Zeus. And so, well, it's not really Zeus's base of operations. It's where all the forces of the Amazons, the forces of really Batman's guys, and so on. It's where they all just kind of taken refuge at. It's sort of like this place where no one fights. It's this conflict-free zone. But then suddenly the entire area is just met with the arrival of Poseidon. And that was the whole idea. With Superman basically going into recluse, we ended up having Aries traveling off to meet Superman and Lex Luthor and saying, we have other gods that we can appeal to if Zeus will not hear your case. Most notably, the arrival of Poseidon. Now, this creates an insanely awesome moment, because what this does is it temporarily puts Superman and Wonder Woman against each other. The reason why is because of the fact that Poseidon, as commander of the seas, is threatening to flood Themyscira and kill everyone, because from Poseidon's perspective, Zeus has no reason to be involved in the affairs of mortal men. But in this instance, he's willing to basically kill everybody on Themyscira in order to bring the conflict to an end, to wipe out those who would ally themselves with Zeus. It's just kind of like circumventing his brother's influence. But then we also have Batman appealing to Aquaman, and he's like, look, you guys have to come here. Like, things are popping off, man. Like, it's getting wild. Like, people are freaking out. The guy's drunk, pissing everywhere. Like, you guys got to do something, man. Like, you guys got to show up. And it's wild to see, because while we have Superman and Wonder Woman fighting, or at least really arguing one another over the fact that Superman is willing to side with Poseidon, who will basically drown everybody that Wonder Woman knows and loves, we basically have two kings of the seas. And that's what happens. Poseidon eventually makes his efforts known when he's attacked by one of the Amazon soldiers. He's shot with an arrow, and he's like, okay, fine. If that's how you guys want to be, then that's how it'll be. And they just flood the waters. But then suddenly it all stops. The waters just all freeze in place. The reason for this is because Aquaman and Mera have arrived on the scene. Now, let me tell you something, Robcore, man. Let me tell you something, Robcore. Man, let me tell you something. This is one of the coolest moments. I feel like Aquaman is finally getting some damn respect, right? Like, Aquaman's finally getting some respect, because he's like, look, like, you may be a god, man, but I'm king of the seas. And then Poseidon takes the exact same stance. He's like, you're a little king of Atlantis. Be gone, little king. Get out of here, little king. Aquaman ain't going down without a fight, folks. That's why I love so much about this, because people look at Aquaman and they're just like, man, it's Aquaman, whatever. Like, it's he talks to fish, and like, no one cares about Aquaman. Like, Aquaman sucks. Well, dude, when he's going against Poseidon, dude, it's so beast. He's like, come feel me. Like, it's amazing when they're fighting against one another, because Aquaman's literally in his element. Like, they're fighting in the water. It's the one place where he would always reign supreme, and it would seem that way. And he even grabs him. He says, look, man, you're fish food. Now, ultimately, Mera's not able to hold these waters back. Keep in mind, Mera's wildly capable in terms of her abilities, but Poseidon is king of the seas. He's king of the oceans. He commands all. His power supersedes Aquaman and Mera by quite a bit. But it's just these gods, and that's the coolest thing about this, is because, it's the gods of Earth versus these old gods. We'll eventually see the introduction of the new gods. The story's entered this echelon that we just haven't really seen before. And that's what makes it so intriguing. That's what makes it so wild. Now, jumping back to Harley Quinn, my favorite character. jumping back to Harley Quinn. Rob Core, I hope you're excited. I'm digging this story so much. So Harley Quinn, like when they're in hell, like the funniest thing here is she says, look, this is like a prison movie, right? Like you gotta find the biggest, baddest guy and you just gotta like beat the hell out of him. When she finds this giant ogre, she's like, it smells like crap in here. She finds this giant ogre and she just starts making this argument about how this ogre just like farted at him, right? She's like, you crop dusted us. That is not cool. And she literally starts taking him out. And that's one of the interesting things is because she starts drawing all this attention. You know, she starts fighting all these different guys. Now, the reason why Harley Quinn does this is because what she's doing is eliminating anybody who could get in her way. But it doesn't seem like that. It just seems like Harley Quinn's crazy. And then you just have Hippolyta and you have Billy Batson who are just watching it unfold. Of course, they still have a green pill. It gives them superpowers. But at the same time, it's just like, this chick's kind of crazy. But once the herd is thinned, like once anybody that could challenge them is thinned out, Harley Quinn's like, all right, let's go. Let's get out of here, guys. You know, when the question's asked, well, if you had that green pill the whole time, why didn't you just take us off the boat? She's like, well, I don't know. I didn't think about that at the time. And that's why I love her character, because it's just these small, little, hilarious moments that we get here and there. But again, with the arrival of one of these giant monsters, you know, from the whole Greek mythological landscape, she's easily able to take it out, you know, with this green pill. But then Aries arrives on the scene. And this is where Bucoletto starts to thicken the plot a bit, because it's really Aries saying, hey, look, I'm playing both sides. I'm playing the side of Batman. I'm playing the side of Superman. I have a scheme that I'm trying to implement here. I have a scheme that I'm trying to see carried out. All you guys are going to do is get in the way. And that's cool. That's why I like Bucoletto putting them here, because they're basically wild cards. No one knows what's going to happen with them. No one knows how it's going to play out. You know, and that's kind of the cool thing, is because oftentimes, you know, it's the fool in the battle that turns the tide of the conflict. And with this particular story, Harley Quinn being as unpredictable, being as rambunctious, you know, being as insane as she is, could easily move the battle towards a different direction. And that's really what happens. Because of the actions of Harley Quinn, everything begins to fall in on itself. And the reason why is because in this conflict with Aries, Hippolyta offers some measure of a distraction and steals his mother box. And this is when we learn that Aries has been in cahoots with Darkseid the entire time. He's been working alongside Darkseid. And that's one of the coolest things, is because switching back to Themyscira, you know, again, with these waters threatening to flood the island itself and eliminate everybody who's there, it's Batman's forces kind of trying to organize this retreat, you know, trying to get everybody to safety, because, well, I mean, that's really all they can do, to be honest. When you're fighting against guys like this, you just kind of do the best you can. But the funny thing is that where the waters are threatening to kill everybody, well, then suddenly we have the Flash show up, and he literally just whisks them all away. Like, he just gets them all to safety. And it's cool because the way that Bucoletto does this, the way it's drawn, is it happens in the blink of an eye. You know, I mean, they're literally just kind of sitting there. We have Batwoman waiting for Batman to show up. And in the time that it takes, in the instant, the fraction of a second, you know, that they see Batman's Batwing, well, then suddenly the Flash has them there and gone in a different location. I mean, it's an eye blink, faster than an eye blink that happens. And it's so cool to see it take place. It's one of the most interesting things. But then ultimately, we basically have Zeus make his presence known and say, look, I've had enough of this. You know, Poseidon, stand down. And that's a cool thing, is Bucoletto recognizing the hierarchy of gods within Greek mythology. You know, that you have Zeus, the king of kings, the king of all gods, you know, and then you have Poseidon, you know, as his brother, but is more or less in a lower capacity, having to stand down. And so with Harley Quinn sending out this kind of SOS to Batman, this is when Bruce Wayne becomes aware of the fact that Darkseid is involved in this. Now, Bruce Wayne's not given all the pieces of the puzzle. Instead, what he does, and like what Batman always does, is begin to assemble the pieces on his own, begin to realize what it is that's happening, how things are going down. Not only that, you know, when Zeus tells Superman, stand down, get out of here, you know, Superman goes to attack Zeus. And that's what's so cool, because this is Superman's hubris coming out, right? It's Superman getting so carried away with his arrogance that he believed he could take out somebody like Zeus. Well, Zeus is a non-corporeal being. And so because of that, when he goes to attack him, it's hitting air, you know, and Zeus even says that. He says, look, you know, with the powers that I have, they might as well be magic to you. Get on my level, bro. Like, it's literally what Zeus is saying. And it's so cool to see, because finally now it's Superman going against a foe that he can't face off against. But in the midst of all this, when Zeus basically begins to take them all out and say, let the conflict end, this is all done, all of you will abide by my wishes or all of you will die, Batman tells Superman, Harley Quinn has a mother box. And this is when Superman begins to catch on to what it is that's actually happened. Now, what's going on? We'll get to that, you know, once we get towards the end of this, if you guys kind of feel like you're being left hanging, if you guys aren't really sure what's going on. But Superman effectively just abandons Earth. You know, when Zeus says, all of you in the Justice League, you will all disband, you will all swear allegiance to the gods of Olympus, you know, Superman just takes off. And Zeus takes this to mean that Superman is siding with his decree. That Superman is finally recognizing that Zeus is the one true king of all the gods, and that Superman has to swear allegiance. Now, picking up with Darkseid himself on Apocalypse, we learn this is not the case. No, sir, not even by a long shot. Like, Superman comes flying in, right, and takes it to Darkseid. And that's the coolest thing, because Superman is beginning to realize that Aries is working alongside Darkseid. Now, Superman doesn't necessarily know he's being manipulated, but in his mind, Aries is setting the stage for another attack by Apocalypse. And the reason why this is such a huge deal is because Superman was able to fight it off once before, but it was only Batman that Superman had to worry about, right? I mean, that was it. It was only Batman that he had to worry about. If Darkseid launches a second attack and Darkseid himself shows up, that means Superman has to deal with the gods of Olympus, he has to deal with Zeus, and he has to deal with Batman and his forces, and he has to deal with Darkseid. It's literally getting him out of the way, moving them out of the way, not having to deal with this conflict, taking out Darkseid and calling it a day. Now, the cool thing about this is that this battle is on a massive scale. I mean, it's really just, it's all taking place in the planet Apocalypse, and it's threatening to destroy everything that's there. But what ends up happening is Batman, recognizing everything that's going on, tells Harley Quinn, give me the mother box, we're gonna go get some help. Now, this is something that I want to address here, because this is a question that a lot of people have. When it comes to the realm of Apocalypse, the new gods, Darkseid on Apocalypse, Highfather on New Genesis, you can't just go there. Like, you can't just fly there. I don't even know how Superman got there, but you can't just fly there. Like, you have to have a mother box to access it. They exist outside of all space and time. That's one of the things that didn't really make sense about how Superman got there. He's just there one day. But when it comes to accessing New Genesis, when it comes to accessing the planet Apocalypse, the only way to get there is through a mother, or at least to get to Apocalypse, is to use a mother box. That's the only way to access it. But at this point, we switch over to New Genesis, home of Highfather. Now, this is a really, really big deal, because remember, Highfather is, on par with power when it comes to Darkseid, but he's the good guy. I mean, he's the guy that, well, he's kind of a dick sometimes, but he's the good guy. He's the guy that's usually always fighting the righteous fight. The problem with this is that Highfather always draws his information, his seeings of the future, and what direction the new god should take, or the people of New Genesis should take. He always draws that from the source of all creation, the presence, God, whatever you want to call it. He always drives his information from there. And the source can be a little bit cryptic at times, but it always gives him a general idea of what's going on around in the multiverse. Because remember, Apocalypse and New Genesis rest outside the multiverse of DC Comics. And so because of that, Batman, basically begins speaking with Highfather. And where Highfather had sent his son off, where he had sent Orion off, I guess really the son of Darkseid, but where he had sent Orion off to go talk to Superman and Darkseid and say, you guys have to stop. If you do not stop, it will lead to the destruction of Apocalypse, and these energies within will permeate out into the multiverse, essentially destroying everything. Batman starts talking with Highfather and says, hey, look, we have much bigger problems in this fight between Superman and Darkseid. And Highfather says, why? And he says, because Aries is aligned with Darkseid. If the two of them are working together, it's a joint venture to take out everyone, to take out Zeus, to take out the Greek gods, to take out you, to take out Superman, to take out anybody that could get in their way, for multiversal domination. And that is a huge concept. And the reason why is because if they were successful, if Aries alongside Darkseid and all those forces were successful, it would lead to the ruin of all. They would literally just begin the process of conquering the multiverse. Now, this will probably lead into some great big huge crisis-like event where it's like all the superheroes of the multiverse facing off against Aries and Darkseid and so on. But nonetheless, it would lead to absolute pandemonium, and it would certainly lead to the destruction of the Earth and the Injustice universe. And so what we end up doing is we basically pick up with this last stand, where the forces of Wonder Woman and Hal Jordan and all these guys end up traveling back to Olympus, and they say, hey, look, we have to bring their forces crashing down. We have to end this regime. Zeus has no intention of stopping. Either he's going to dominate the world, or he's going to have to be brought to an end. He's basically going to have to be killed with regards to his character. And so they end up taking the conflict directly to Olympus itself. The problem with this is that humanity is responding to the threats of Zeus exactly as we would expect. Humanity doesn't know what to do. And that's been the whole issue here. Remember, when Superman first popped up, humanity was like, you can't control us. But as time progressed, humanity began to realize they can't stop in the face of Superman. Some agreed with him, some didn't agree with him, but humanity couldn't stop the Justice League. But when you have these gods, that humanity can do nothing against, Superman's gone, the one person that can save them seems to have basically bailed out. Well, humanity's only option is, well, we just have to launch the strongest weapon we have. And that weapon basically turns out to be nuclear weapons. And so what we do is we basically pick up with Wonder Woman, grabbing these weapons and trying to throw them out in space, knowing it might kill her in the process. But then Superman pops up, and Superman's just like, no, it's not as bad as it seems to be. I'm going to effectively save you here. And this is when we find out that Superman had basically seen what was going on when he was told by Orion that everything is going to lead to the destruction of all. This fight between him and Darkseid is going to lead to the destruction of all. It granted this momentary peace where Superman said, I'm going back to Earth. If I see you again, I will kill you. And that's a crazy thing, because during the fight with Darkseid began to realize this was the case. Superman's not holding back. Superman's not pulling his punches. Superman's fighting to kill. And so because of that, Darkseid began to realize things, this Superman's a little bit different, than anyone he's ever fought before. And so what ends up happening here is Superman faces down Zeus and says, you have to stop. Get out of here. Go back to your realm. go. If you do not, you will end up being destroyed. And so where Zeus goes to attack Superman, Highfather appears here. Now, this is a huge deal because it's basically the old gods versus the new gods. Now, if Highfather and Zeus were to actually fight each other, it would probably lead to the destruction of everything. And in fact, that's exactly what's being said here, where the conversation between the two of them is basically wasting time, or at least it seems like it's wasting time. The different heroes chiming in, offering their own discussions and so on and so forth. Highfather says, let us talk privately. Let us talk without intrusion. And they literally freeze all space and time. Everything stops. And that's the coolest thing, is now it's them not worrying about anybody else being here. And the conversation that's being told, or at least being offered by Highfather as he's explaining it to Zeus, is you're being played. That Aries has allied himself with Hera and Darkseid for the purpose of bringing you down, taking out Superman, removing anybody that could threaten their ability to take over the multiverse. And when Zeus's question is, well, how do you have this information? Highfather says, I've been told by the source. Now, initially, Zeus doesn't care. Initially, Zeus is like, whatever, man, it's the time of our gods. We're going to come out here, the Olympian gods are going to take over the world. And Highfather says, it doesn't matter, because even if you do that, if you're dead, of what use is it? And so ultimately Zeus kind of says, okay, fine. He acquiesces and he basically backs off. He regrants Billy Batson the power to turn into Shazam, and ultimately decides basically go their own separate ways. But before this happens, Superman goes to Aries and says, I've had enough of your games. I've had enough of you trying to play both sides. I've had enough of you trying to mess with people, to bring things out to these own conflicts, to see your own goals and ambitions perceived. He says, I'm taking you to Darkseid. And that's exactly what he does. He whisks him off to Darkseid and says, here's Aries. Do what you want with him. Torture him. He's immortal. You can just torture him forever. Now, of course, where Darkseid relishes in this, Superman says, but a word of warning, my friend, and heed these words with an absolute truth. If I see you on Earth again, or even believe that you're coming to Earth, I will kill you. If Aries comes to Earth, I will kill him, and then I will kill you. It's literally Superman saying, I will bring everything that you love crashing down if I ever see you. And you know what Darkseid says? Okay. Because Darkseid knows that Superman is 100% not screwing around. He knows that Superman is 100% serious when he says, I will kill you if I see you again. And so what ends up happening is we basically transition back to Earth. And with these nuclear missiles that were launched by this World Security Council or what have you, Superman shows up, because right now these leaders of the world are like, guys, you do realize when Superman comes back, there's going to be hell to pay. Like, he told us that we had to disarm. Now he knows we still have nuclear missiles. He doesn't know how many we have left. At least it doesn't seem like it. There's going to be hell to pay. And that's exactly what happens. Superman comes back and he says, let me tell you something, guys. I told you to disarm. I told you what would happen if you didn't. So he says, if you're not going to disarm, I will disarm you. Superman literally went around the world and took every single nuclear missile that was in existence and destroyed them all, melted them all down. And he says, from this point going forward, you will all answer to me. You as nations will no longer have autonomy. You report directly to me. And Katie bar the door if I find out that you guys are not following my orders. Woe betide you if I find out that you're working against me, because I promise I will come back and I will annihilate every last one of you. And so what this story does as it starts to wrap up, as it begins to come to an end, is we pick up beyond the reach of Superman. Because what had happened is Superman had talked to Batman and said, hey, look, come back here, come with me, let's talk, let's see if we can work things out. Now on the surface, this is what's so cool about this, is on the surface, it seems like it would work, right? Like, it seems like it would happen, because you would have Batman, who's been trying to reason with Superman the whole time, where he's been saying, hey, look, let's get things sorted out, let's work together, let's arrange this in a way that we both see our goals come to fruition. The idea is that Superman almost seems like he's starting to see things from Batman's perspective. But Bruce Wayne, he was born at night, but he wasn't born last night. He's not a fool, all right? Like, he knew right off the bat it was a trap. Now, what this is Brian Bucalotta telling us how far both of these guys have fallen. That Superman has fallen to the point that he's willing to dupe his best friend, or who was his best friend, and kill him in order to keep him out of the way. Batman has fallen so far that he doesn't even want to take the chance anymore. He doesn't even want to risk trusting Superman anymore. Not only that, in Batman's mind, Superman has to be destroyed. He has to be brought down. And so what happens is we pick up again beyond the reach of Superman's ability to see, with Batman talking to Lex Luthor, and they're having this enigmatic conversation where they're talking about how the stakes have been raised and Batman has to grab more allies and so on and so forth, just kind of leading into year 5, which will lead into the video game itself. But then we find out that this being that Lex Luthor had in a containment vessel, this being, whoever it was, and we know who it is, but whoever this being was, has escaped. This being has basically just kind of taken off. And the result is that we don't know where it went. We don't even know what it is. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about Injustice so far, because I think it is amazing. And I will catch you all later. Peace.